Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ki Fateh. My name is Paul Jali. Welcome to you all to Breakfast Show, Saturday morning, the 23rd May. I got a very, very special guest today, and I'm so honored and pleased to have her today. And before I introduce my guest, I need to make a little announcement. Last week, on Saturday, that's because first time ever, Sikh Channel is going to do a live show. Kirtan da te apna utho Hemkut Sahib to 3 hours every day. अगर किसी भी ने तुझे स्पॉन्सर करना होगा प्लीज सारे बर्मिंघम ऑफिसर्स को कॉल करो and you can book a space for 1 day or 1 week or 1 month. It will be complete for the month of June. 3 hours every day. तो जो भी किसी ने बुक करना call our number 0121 3801050 थे पहली दफ़ा बड़े अच्छा किसी चैनल का पहला उठा कि असी उत्तों हेमकुंट साहब तो उत्तों लाइव प्रोग्राम दिखाएंगे और संगत साडी कितने भी दुनिया च बैठी तुसी अपने घर बैठ के तुसी आनंद लै सकते हो तुसी इंजॉय कर सकते हो तो नाल दी नाल मैं गल करना चाहांगा आई थिंक मैं पहला अपनी गेस्ट नाल गल कर लूँगा फिर वी गोना टॉक समथिंग लिटिल बिट अबाउट Nepal as well. I got a special guest here, Seema Malhotra, re-elected MP. Welcome you to the Breakfast Show this morning in London studio.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
No, I want to say it's our honor, a pleasure. Seema, my personal choice, what I do is a lot of things, opportunities I miss in my life because my days, we didn't have that kind of help to people to guide you what you want to do, what you should be doing. Parents wanted to do something different and a child had something totally a different mind. They never came together and, it was all kind of big hassle. Something Seema mentioned your name. I would like you to give you a little introduction, where you were born and where did you take your education and all that?
Very happy to share because I think actually understanding personal story is very helpful in politics because I am just like so many others here. I grew up, born in Hammersmith, grew up in Hounslow. My parents came in the 1960s. They had a shop. My mum was a teacher in Heston as well. And when you come really from those beginnings where nobody has had any connection with politics, I think it is a story that is one that I hope many can relate to because my story in politics is starting out thinking about what I wanted to see change in the world. I didn't have any connection with the Labour Party. I didn't have any family connection with the Labour Party. But I grew up with a sense of watching the news like people are watching about Nepal now, watching about maybe injustice in the world, watching the Rohingya Muslims who are travelling the world, nobody offering them a home, actually saying this is a world in which we all live. This is a world in which there are abuses, human rights abuses. This is a world in which the environment is a challenge. When I grew up, Nelson Mandela was still in prison as well. And those were the things that really start to shape your thinking. What can we change locally for the better? What can we change nationally? What can we change internationally?
So you started thinking in that term that you wanted to bring in a change. But not that you had any background from the family as in politics at all?
None.
That surprises me, really good.
And really it is about saying, when people come through wherever their calling is in life. You don't know where it's going to be, but some people, children, you see them, they love dancing. You have no idea what they're going to end up being, whether they'll be musicians or something else. People who love literature, you have no idea, are they going to grow up to be writers? Are they going to grow up to be teachers? Are they going to grow up to be journalists? Are they going to grow up, in whichever way?
Where you, when I say where, I know you were well born in England, in especially local area in Middlesex. When did you know actually this is where you're going to head on to? What age, what schooling? Were you in the college, university or school? How soon that idea hit you?
The truth is I never really knew, but I would say that there were markers in my life when you look back on your life that maybe were significant. So actually when I was at Heston Primary School, when elections came up, I did stand for the Labour Party.
Did you?
So, and I had no idea why, what triggered that, but I did stand for the Labour Party. And if you had told me then that I would go on to be a politician, I wouldn't necessarily have believed you, nor would my parents, because they were struggling to make ends meet, just as most families are struggling. We got by, we had my Dadiji lived with us, we grew up in extended family, those family values, getting by, making sure you had food to eat, making sure you had good education. My parents also were very keen. My sister became an engineer, the other became a doctor, the other did mathematics. So when I actually was interested in politics, I'm not sure that they understood why, But what they did believe is that children should pursue their dreams and go ahead in the way that they want to in life. I actually had a business career as well before I came into politics. So my political life has been like in a sense, I saw as a second job.
Really?
I saw it, I did evenings, I did weekends continuously around the country, other ways in which I was involved in the Labour Party, but I was also a management consultant working with a very large company, travelling the world as well. And in that, I believe that my life in business and my life in the community combined to make me the politician that I am. Because everybody who even goes into politics is a different kind of politician.
Mm. But Seema, still, you know, when you say you were very keenly taking interest in the business as well, and then on the politics as well, were you running here and there, still trying to decide what you really wanted to do, or whether in back of your mind you knew that you want to get seriously into politics?
I think there was one point when you have to say how much can you continue to do this. I had stood for council, I had stood for the London Assembly, I was in a career where I could go on and look to become very senior in whichever company I worked for. But there comes a time when you actually say, what do I want to be doing that will make me feel like I'm not just doing a job? You have to feel like what you're doing is your vocation. You know, that you don't look to the clock for the end of the day. And so there was a very, in a sense, it wasn't a planned thing, but I came to realize that I used to want to leave work at the end of the day in order to go campaigning, in order to be in an election. And that made me realize that politics was something that was driving me. It was a passion. I could see when I helped elect other politicians as well, the work that they did. And there was one turning point. Actually, it was Douglas Alexander. He was our Shadow Foreign Secretary, and he has just lost his seat. But I remember some years ago, he said that one of the decisions he'd made when he realized he was doing politics in the evenings and weekends was to say, if I want to actually be doing politics in the day as well, then I should stand for Parliament. And I think that resonated with me. So I decided maybe actually I was, maybe it was 10 years ago, that if I had the opportunity, that I would leave my other job and that I would go and pursue a career in politics. But I would do that having had life experience outside. I made that very clear decision. I would do that having a sense of what my purpose was in politics. I would do that making sure that my family was with me, because in politics, it's very difficult to be successful if you don't have support. And to have my family supporting me was very, very important. And they are involved in my political life, my community life. And community politics as well is something I always saw as very, very important.
One thing I picked up in you, when you just talking to me, that you said you want to bring a change. Listening to what you just said, a lot of people watch programs on the TV. We just sit and complain, oh my God, we could have done better than that. We say we could have done better than that. People don't get up and do something about it. And here, you thought you want to bring a change. There's certain things you had in your mind. You got up and you've done something about it. And you're not complaining here, oh, this government is not good, I should vote for that one, I should vote for that one. But you actually, got up from your backside and you've done something in your life and you're here to make a change. Tell me, what did you feel that it needed a change? What change you have in your mind?
Well, one of the things I think is most important is tackling inequality, when people are not having opportunities because of who they are or their condition. So when I was at school, in fact in Hounslow at the Green School, I spent many of my summers doing voluntary work. This was before I even became involved in the Labour Party. And I used to work with children who had disabilities, worked with their family, their parents as well. And you see how people can be held back by circumstances that are not their own. I also, or not really that they can change. I also used to do home help for those who were elderly, who couldn't look after themselves. So there was a strong sense for me that people can get on in life when actually they have the support that will help them get on in life. That has always been something that has been a driving factor for me. And it manifests itself in different ways. It manifests itself in making sure that we have the minimum wage, which I'm very proud the Labour Party brought in, and why I was so behind what we were calling for even in this election. I believe also so strongly in the National Health Service, and before the Labour government, the previous Labour government, there hadn't been any new hospitals built for 18 years. We then built 100 hospitals. Even the NHS, the idea took 50 years to become a reality. It was an idea that was in a report in the early 20th century. It took another 50 years for a Labour government to make that a reality. So in politics, things are not always short term. They can also be long term. But in this, I believe, when I look at my community, what I've done work in and where I want to see us continue, that nobody should be unemployed, that I shouldn't have people coming to my surgery saying, I can't get the help I need to start my business, but I have this vision. I want to help people achieve those visions. When you see them coming forward, when you see them changing their own lives, when you see them changing each other's lives, there's a big satisfaction, and then we can step back. But also what we need to see is that everybody has the confidence that society is on their side, that the government is on their side, and now together that we should tackle the very big challenges we face in the country. But I will say one thing very fundamentally, that I believe most strongly that we should have a democracy that we are all participating in. I never wanted to be somebody that sat on the sidelines, because one of the things that keeps us safe as a society, if you look around the world where there are so many problems, where there are governments that have broken down, where people are fighting each other, if you look at where there is a strong state, if you look at where there is strong democracy, actually that's where the societies are most peaceful. So take our community, so multicultural, so many people who've come from different parts of the world, our Asian community here is so active, so successful as well in business and community life, now coming forward in politics. These are the messages we need to share with the next generation, because the next generation will be the ones who say, do we continue that success and that integration, or do we step back and create division in our society? So one of the most important roles, in my opinion, for politics of today's age is keeping integration, keeping all communities successful, making sure that we are a beacon to the world about how you can live together in harmony.
Seema, you know, when I see Asian community, I must compliment you, young girl, have achieved so much in your age. I'm going to come back to you about the elections in a minute. Just a couple of days ago, I was watching, you just said it, that we've really gone a long way in business, politics, and in every aspect in the field, in bringing up the country economy. I was watching an ITV program the other day. They were talking about the aggressive children at the age of 4, 5, 6, and 8. They grew up to be very aggressive kids, and they start kicking things, they start kicking the mother, blah, blah, blah. And you know what, I was just listening to that because that seemed quite interesting to find out the reason why does the child behave like that. Who did they have a doctor there? An Asian girl. And you know, these days an Asian person sitting on an English channel giving advice, you know, my heart, honestly, this is something beyond me. And this is on behalf of Sikh Channel and myself. I really, really congratulate you for what have you achieved in your life. We feel proud to see our youngsters coming up, and you know, you're part of the government, you're part of the country. And coming back to the elections, when you stood for the elections now for an MP, that was in Feltham, wasn't it? In your mind, I really need to know, because you're in politics, you know that this is very nail-biting. How did you feel when the elections were going on? What did you know in your mind? What's going to happen?
Well, firstly, I want to say that matter of or feeling of pride when others are coming forward from within the Asian community, we all feel that. I feel exactly the same when I see those on television who are the experts in their fields. I feel exactly the same when more come forward in politics. I feel exactly the same when I see journalists, and you see in our national newspapers in Britain, you see Asian names as well, because it is about the community coming forward. And you look at the Sikh Channel as an example now, broadcasting around the world, on YouTube as well. That also is a matter of huge pride.
It's come a long way. It's still coming. It's a long way to go yet, but still with people's support, with the sponsors we get, the donations we get, we will get there eventually. I started using one little word now, simply, Sikh Channel, simply born to live, to rise. I hope one day it will rise, honestly. I like to see it right, one of the top.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it should be, because it is a community service as well. And the communication, if I come back to, I think one of the most important challenges today is making sure we communicate with each other, because we've stopped talking to each other, and it's talking that keeps us connected. But on the election was my first general election because I was in the by-election 3 years ago. And elections are tough. For anybody who sees from the outside when a candidate goes, actually you are working all day and usually at night as well. You are preparing for the door knocking, you are preparing to answer questions, you are making calls when you are not out, you are writing letters, you are preparing for media, you are preparing for hustings, you are making sure your staff are okay, you are making sure the volunteers know how much you really, from the bottom of your heart, you cannot always thank people personally, but from the bottom of it, you see everything that is happening and it makes you feel very humble. With you and for you, and you keep that real sense of responsibility that people have given up so much, even those who just walk in the office, people who never knew you, people who may never see you again. They say, I want to help in one small way, what can I do? They may take a poster, they may share one story about their lives, but actually the real importance of politics and at election time is it challenges politicians. Make sure that you are saying the right things, you are campaigning for the right policies. And I believe very strongly every day that we were on the right side, that we were campaigning for the right things, and just that we had to do the best that we could. And we were disappointed in the result on election day. I had gone around the country 2-3 other seats a week because being in the front bench shadow Home Office team as a minister, I'm the shadow minister for preventing violence against women and girls. I also had responsibility to help make sure others came through as well. But every day when you have somebody who says to you personally why it's so important for them that Labour comes into power, or why they're voting for you, or why they're voting for one of your colleagues, that's what makes it so rewarding every day. Now, you can never be sure, even if it's your own seat and you're standing for re-election, that you will be in. I have colleagues who lost majorities of 20,000 in Scotland. And the only thing I can say is you have to always be humble in politics, because you really are there in a matter of trust with other people. And it is always a responsibility. And you have to always make sure that people know how much you care, they know how much you are there for them, that it isn't just about election time, it is a matter of your service, your public service every day that you are elected for them. So I feel incredibly humbled by my majority, which was nearly doubled. We did not expect that size. And all I can say is it makes you feel even more that you have a bigger duty to return that trust and to make sure that you see a bigger change in the community.
You know, when you do ever sit down and think for a minute, why should any person vote for me? Did that question come into your mind? Or did you have a confident, yes, I'm a deserving candidate, yes, I deserve people to vote for me? How did you feel on that time?
Well,
did that question come in that, you know, obviously the person like me should come to you, Seema, tell me, why should I vote for you?
Well, it's something that you have to get used to as a politician, because in a way you are doing it's part of your service. You are both doing your sales, your marketing. If you're in a business, you are doing everything. Yeah. You are your brand personally as well as your brand as a party. But if you really believe, when you've heard your constituents talking to you, constituents who are saying, I can't get my NHS appointment, my doctor's appointment, or I can't get this, or I've struggled with this, or I haven't heard this. If you really believe that you have better answers to help change people's lives, the election is just a means to doing that. And you have to believe that you've got the right answers. And that's what I did believe. So in a sense, that makes it very easy to have those conversations, because it isn't about me, it isn't about the election, it's about people's lives. And when you stay focused like that, I believe you don't go wrong in politics. When you lose focus on actually what politics is all about, it's for people's lives, it's for your constituents' lives, it's for Britain's future. When you stay focused on those goals, then I don't think you go wrong. And you have to then debate that you have the right way, always learning as well. We should always challenge ourselves. And that's why the election actually is, I think, one of the most enriching experiences, tough but enriching experiences to go through.
You mentioned about the national health. There's a lot to talk about it. How do you feel about the national health now? And like you mentioned, that the certain changes you'd like to see. Again, my same wording for national health. I think it's a long way to go yet, and to put it right.
I'm very concerned. I am very concerned because we don't know how we're going to see privatisation grow within the NHS. We don't know when we're going to see those waiting times turn around or how they will happen. We don't know if the funding will really materialise that we called for and is being talked about. So on those challenges, this is why the role of the opposition remains fundamental to our democracy working. It's also why it's going to be very important for me to be listening to constituents when they come in for surgery appointments or I do surveys. What are they saying now about their experience? It's very important that I will raise those issues with ministers. It's very important that we will say, if we need to deliver our services differently in our community, in the community as well as in the hospital, as well as GP services, how do we come together? There is also a very big role where we have to make sure that the community's voice is heard in our local health services. So one of my areas, one of my priorities is going to be building those bridges between the community and the services so that the community voice can be heard very, very loudly. That's how we'll make sure that the best we can, even locally, we can make sure that services continue to improve.
You know, like there are a lot of things I can mention. When the elections, on the election day, we went out on the street to talk to people. Like, who you going to, well, we did ask the question, who's going to vote, and some would answer, some wouldn't answer. And then I came with the clever idea. I said, okay, what will President government, do you like them? Said, oh no, there could be some changes. So I knew who they're going to vote for, so obviously it makes sense. The other thing I would like to touch on is the, like national health, which you talked about it, immigration. What's your view on that? Are you planning anything at all that, as a Labour candidate, what would you like to do? What changes would you like to bring in? Are you going to think that the government should be more stricter or bring in some different rules in there?
Well, immigration is going to be a bill this year as well, and so we are going to see that in the government's Queen's speech. But we, interestingly, had called for a number of ideas which were announced, I think, in some ways by the Conservatives this week. And so those ideas of where we will say that you should not be recruiting from abroad before you've advertised here, that actually came from the Labour Party. If you look in the Labour Party manifesto and the votes we'd had in Parliament, that the Conservatives actually voted against. If you look at what we've said, where the government needs to actually put the resources back into border control, one of the big issues has been that you haven't been able to see how long people are staying. So if there are people who are staying over their visas, that actually there should be that knowledge. And you should have those exit checks as well. Now, I've had immigration raised with me by many from also within the Sikh community, even just this week in the constituency. So it is a concern to people to make sure there are those fair controls. That's what the Labour Party has said. But the Labour Party has also recognised that immigration, the right immigration, is incredibly important for Britain, for our economy, for making sure people can come and study, for making sure that those who are studying are able to make some contribution as well. In the future, they will be the business people of the future. Look how many nurses and doctors in our health service have come from abroad. So in many ways, our economy is dependent on people who have come from abroad, those who are succeeding here. What we need to make sure is that there is a fairness in that system. There are fair controls, that you cannot claim for public services before you've contributed. Those are the things that we would have brought in, and we will be scrutinising very closely what the government proposes in the bill that it brings forward this year.
So very interesting. I'm finding it, you know, because a lot of things, I wouldn't get any better answer than sitting with an MP asking questions you straight, and I'm sure, like myself, I'm thoroughly enjoying this, and our viewers must be enjoying this as well. I've got a lot of questions to ask you. We're running short of time at the moment. We'll go for a short break, and we'll see you soon on the other side. We're, as you told you, छोटी break lamange. Please keep joining us, and we'll talk to Seema in the next second half. Waheguru Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ki Fateh. Waheguru Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ki Fateh. Welcome back to the second part. Second part, which I always read, a thought of the day. Today I've been sent this thought of the day by one of the viewers, Jesh Patel from Southall. It says, in life when we face choices, just toss the coin. Not because it settles the question, but while the coin is in the air, you suddenly know what your heart is hoping for. Seema, this is so interesting, isn't it? A lot of times you think you can't decide, and I think your heart and your mind need to make a decision what you need to do, and we still go and toss that coin, and you're still hoping, because what the coin should turn into, and because that's your decision. Why do we still do that?
I think it's such a lovely thought of the
Isn't
day.
it?
Really is. And I tell you what it reminded me of. When you are making a difficult decision, deciding which way to vote, maybe on an issue, and it might be quite complicated or sensitive in some way, you do need to go through a process of really kind of talking to people. You do your research, you listen to the debate. Sometimes you may not even decide until close to the end of a debate which way you may go. But there's that moment when actually maybe more than one coin is tossed. And then suddenly it's like the other side is when they say the penny drops. Literally in this case, the penny will drop.
The penny will drop.
And you know that that's the right way. All the different inputs have come, and you just know.
But then you having made your decision in your mind, you still toss the coin. If that coin doesn't drop the way you wanted it, you wouldn't change your decision, would you?
No, but I think there's something about just the process of making a decision, or the process of something active.
But if it comes the right way, then you'll be more determined. See, that's what I want to do. That coin has come the way I wanted to do it.
Yeah, but sometimes actually I think it's also a good indication that you can put the right effort in, but you can't always dictate the outcome. Sometimes what's really important is the honesty of your effort, and which way the coin lands sometimes is a different matter to what you've gone through to get there. So I think that is really a good piece of advice. Whichever way you read that thought for the day, I think so many different ways you can interpret, so many different ways you can apply, I think, the different insights. But sometimes just being open as well, sometimes recognizing you can throw things up in the air, and you have to trust that something good can also come out of that as well. When you're challenging the way the world is right now, that's another example. You challenge the way the world is, and throwing things up in the air is actually allowing them sometimes to settle in a different way and make a change.
True. Seema, we were talking about Sikh Channel earlier. It's so important for our community to have a channel, which we have now. Look, today you're sitting here, and all around the world, viewers listening to you. This is my aim. This is my idea with the Sikh Channel. I like to bring in people like yourself who've achieved something in life, in business, politics, sports, whatever. I personally, and on behalf of Sikh Channel, congratulate you for being elected second time an MP. You are a role model to the youngsters, and I really sincerely hope that our youngsters are listening to Seema and me talking to each other. Basically, we're coming down to nitty-gritty things. Why did she decide? How did she decide? What are the obstacles she had on the way to become an MP? It wasn't easy. Tell me the most difficult part, Seema, you had in your life, thinking, oh my God, was it a turning back point one time? Or?
I don't think there was a turning back point, but there was, I think, a time when it was difficult, it was challenging, and I think before I became an MP, the issue was this, that when you make life choices, you can always see what you haven't then chosen, the alternative life. And politics is risky, isn't it? Politics is risky. You can then suddenly, your fortunes can be different tomorrow compared to today. Even if you're in what people see as a safe seat. Well, even my seat was Conservative just over 20 years ago. So in this, you have to always say that you have to work very hard. And for me, the moment that was perhaps the toughest moment, it was a period of about 6 months, when what I did was I thought about my life. I thought about my priorities in life. And I give this advice to many others who are coming through, people who say to me through, whether it's the mentoring program that we run for people who want to come forward in politics, or it's people who just come and say, I'm interested, which way do I go next? I say you have to decide your priorities in life. Now for me, my family was a priority. My politics was my next priority. My private sector career was my third priority. And in that, I could then make the choices within that. If I had to choose between politics and my job, which would I choose? Well, it was going to be politics over my job. If I was going to choose between family and politics, well, I will compromise if I need to, on how I'm doing my work, where I am. If I need to spend more time at home, my father was ill for 18 months. I had to make some choices about how much I did in Parliament, make people aware that I may not be around as much because I had to look after him. My family had to come first in those, in different ways. Sometimes with shorter time I had to be at community events, but always still try to go because my father was a man of the community as well, and he believed in his own way. He had run a business in the community. That's where I'd learned so much about service, public service, and from his attitude and his respect to everybody, whoever they were. So for me, actually making sure that I could balance, and it makes life much more straightforward because you're not in conflict with yourself. When you don't have when you have experienced conflict with yourself, you have to make those choices. So I think that 6 months of time I spent really thinking, based on advice that somebody else gave me, was the most important point in my life, because after that, everything has been much more straightforward when it comes to those conflicts, when it comes to those choices.
Is that the lowest of the lowest you felt in your life at that time, or was there other times when you really had gone really down under, and then you think, oh God, you really needed a push, or like you said earlier in the first half, that it wouldn't have been possible without your family's support?
I think that, but you go through tough times when you're younger as well. I remember tough times when I was at school, tough times at university, times when you cease to sometimes believe in yourself as well, or when you think I won't be able to achieve this. And part of being able to reconcile that and becoming, I think, more content as an adult as well, or having contentment come into your life earlier, is the advice sometimes of your elders, is really stepping back and saying, I can put the maximum effort I can into what I'm doing, but sometimes the results are not for me to determine. And to have, I think, that humility and be able to recognize that, I think that's why if you even go to the Gurdwara from a young age, or you go to any other place of worship, you learn some of those life lessons, which are the things that keep you steady, because life is rocky. Political life is rocky. You can lose more than you win. You can make more enemies than you make friends.
And you still went that direction.
And you still go in that direction because you believe in something. If we had a world without politics, would it be better or worse? That's the question. And if it's going to be better, then what part do I play in making it better? So in this, I would say that for anyone who's interested in politics, you have to decide your personal life purpose. You have to think how politics will help others, not just about helping yourself, because positions can be taken away as much as they are given. Your purpose has to be more than that. And to say then, how are you going to get experience? You're going to get experience by challenging yourself, by going with other people who are in that field, by seeing it as a profession, where just as you would if you were a doctor, or you were in construction, or you were in business, you would be wanting to work with the best, you would be wanting to work with those who can teach you. So in that way, go and learn, step outside of your local area, do as I did, go around the country campaigning in different seats, learn about how the culture may be different in different areas, go abroad and learn about politics if you want it to also be your profession, whether you do it paid or you do it unpaid. I always took politics seriously, even before I was elected, because I saw it as my unpaid work. It was my community work I should do to the same professional standard as I would any other job.
Seema, you said, as you said, and I know in politics you're going to do a lot of running around, canvassing, meeting people, knocking the door, especially at the time of elections. How do you feel as being a young lady? Is there any drawback than a male and a woman? There must be times you're thinking, do you fear that sometimes? There's a male candidate against you, and being a lady, how do you feel about that?
Well, I was very fortunate. I was the first woman to be elected ever in the history of Feltham and Heston.
Really?
And both times I've been the candidate, I don't know whether this is fortunate or unfortunate, but I was up against only men. I believe that it's really important that we have more ethnic minorities coming forward in politics, definitely, to challenge the way things are, to make sure that all voices are heard. But I believe also that you should have more women coming forward, because that's how we will see our politics becoming more relevant to everybody's lives. Now we have 29% women in Parliament. We are still well below 50%, but it's more than ever in the history of Parliament. And majority of that now is with the Labour Party, and it always has been. But this point about being a woman, it is hard. It's not always hard when there are more women. So now I'm in the Labour Party, and we see almost a third of Parliament is women, so you don't feel as different. But if you take, going back to the days when you just had maybe 10 women in Parliament, when Harriet Harman came in, who's now our acting leader of the Labour Party, when she came in, just having a handful of women, actually it becomes challenging because people don't always take you as seriously. They don't see you really as a politician. So public perceptions can be different. But doesn't that put you off?
Like you lose the confidence, don't you?
You have to fight harder. So I think not just ethnic minorities, if we think about how you have to challenge in a world where you grow up as a minority, but women going forward. My sister's an engineer. I grew up and went to university. When I studied politics and philosophy, I was a minority in my class. When I went into a large corporate world, women were minorities there. When I was going to clients, majority, the board meetings I was helping run, majority men at the board. So what do? You have to develop even more skills. These are opportunities, and they are opportunities where you have to be very skillful, not just in learning how you do your job, but who you seek advice from. Every day there will be a new challenge, even for me in politics, and every day I will think, who can I go and seek advice from? So in this, I would say one of the biggest messages I give to others as well: develop your networks, have the courage to ask. Don't be afraid if there's something you don't know. Guaranteed there will be 5 other people who don't know, but they won't say. And it's more often that men will pretend they know. So sometimes have the courage to pretend as well, and sometimes have the courage to come forward, because that's how you will then tackle the next barrier and the next barrier, and you will always be as equal as you choose to be.
Seema, what I see since we've been talking, you got so much determination and willpower. I don't see you stopping anywhere, and I wish you best in your life. Honestly, MP, I'd like to see that word change over to PM one day. I'll be so proud, honestly, to be read that. Now, I being a parent, how does your family feel about it, especially mom and dad?
Well, my father passed away last year, but he was always very proud, I think. My parents and my mother, who works with me, she worked very hard in the election with me as well, and in a sense it becomes like a little bit of a family affair. But this is, I think, the truth for me, that my parents, when we were growing up, they chose to have a shop in Osterley and Hounslow. So I grew up in my constituency. I went to school as well in Heston, and we grew up in Feltham as well. And so the principles of respect for others, the principles of making sure you work with your family as well, the principles of making sure that you have your responsibility to yourselves as well. My father was really, even if income was low, that he'd earned his own by his own work, he'd earned his money. That was incredibly important a principle, and it's one that I believe in as well. That's why the Labour Party is actually called the Labour Party for a reason. It's believed in the value of work for people's lives, for their confidence, for their esteem, for their sense of self-respect as well. And so I'm really fortunate that even though it was an unusual profession to enter, and it wasn't without its struggles. I mean, when you come to this country and you're struggling, if your children aren't entering conventional professions, you will sometimes have some fear about what the future will hold for them. I think what was really important about the journey my parents made, they made that journey as Asian parents who didn't know what the schooling was going to be like for their children, the children growing up not always with the same culture, but really, so their strength of passing on family values was very important through their own behaviour and the respect they gave to us as well. But in this as well, to actually then take the risk of that journey with your daughter going into a different sort of life where you don't know the rules, and then to see your daughter mixing with people that otherwise was just the other side of the television screen. And then to actually, I feel very, very lucky. My father was alive and part of the election campaign when I was elected, because it was a dream that I don't think you could ever have. You couldn't have made it up. It was something that I believe in some ways, you know, if life has given that to you, you have to treasure that and you have to pay back that respect. So I feel very lucky. My mother is still very much part of the community. People who were her students are now have voted for us. People who she taught with. The school is in my constituency, where I went, where my mother taught as well, Heston Primary School. So it actually resonates with actually seeing politics as being part of being in the community. Politics being there to work with the community. Politics being there to work with all the faith organisations. Politics being there to support the interfaith work. Politics being there to say with local businesses, just as we grew up in a business, that success is behind there is a family seeking to feed its children. And when you have those ways in which you see the world in which you are, it informs the way in which you take that conversation even to the national level and even at international level.
Seema, that's lovely talking to you. I'll come back to you in a minute. I think I should touch down a little bit on Nepal. Tony Saran ne pata jadon Nepal ch disaster hoya, biggest one. Sikh Channel had a sister company called Sikh Channel Aid, and Tony donation de naal sangat di apni den de naal we managed to collect £29,500. General 50 boxes, shelter boxes, we managed to send it to Nepal immediately, or to see Desh Pradesh photos with the camera. The truck was loaded, ready to go. And then we, in the second phase now, collecting some more money. We got enough to send another 25 boxes now. Please to see इसी तरह नेपाल नु देखते रहो बहुत पहली हालत है कि जड़ी तुरंत न्यूज़ मिलती है it's unconfirmed news है कि 100% सारा किसी को पता नहीं. I was watching the other channel. Official एंड ने क्या कि तकरीबन 6,000 बंदे दी मौत हुई है, लेकिन it's estimated that well over 25,000 people have actually died. बड़े लोग दी सारी फैमिली तबाह हो गई है. The people are really in desperate need. चलो खाना तो ਅਸੀਂ दे रहे हैं, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ पता है गुरुद्वारा अपना दिल्ली वाले बेचारे ने ਉੱਥੇ लंगर खुद लगा के सेवा कर रहे ने. But then ਸਾਡਾ ਵੀ ਫਰਜ਼ ਬਣਦਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ at the moment most important the shelter. Some of the shelter boxes are so professionally designed, especially for these kind of zones. There's a tent, there's a mosquito net, there's some toys for the kids, some blanket, thermal ones, all that. And Sikh Channel, again coming back to Sikh Channel, we would never be able to do this. Very important, honestly. My heart goes to the people in Nepal. I think we should all join in. जितना भी चला £590 एक बॉक्स की कीमत है, but whatever you can afford, 5, 10, 15 जिन्ने भी तुसी कर सकते हो, every penny counts. Please सारे Birmingham office to ring करके अपनी donation दबो. That this is the time they still need a lot of shelter boxes. They Seema, now coming back, बहुत interesting मैं तुला गाल कर रही थी थोड़ी parents थी, you know एक ही हिंदी च लफ्ज़ है, लेकिन अगर मैं इंग्लिश कहूँगा सेंस चेंज होती है. कहते कि माँ दे कदमों में जन्नत होती है. You understand?
You can also repeat for everybody, yeah.
And your mom, it seems to be a pillar behind you. Give us a message. Look at the camera, give her a message. Tell her something from your heart. You would never be able to talk to her face to face. Tell her over the camera today. Give her a message.
Well, I can just say, I can say this, I can happily say a huge thank you, because as well as being our mum, she really has been just tremendous in the community. People whose lives she has touched through being a teacher, and so many who I see in the constituency as well, in my own campaign, just making sure that all of our needs were met, making sure those small things are there, because the big things then depend on all those small things. So she's not just my mum, I believe she's the community's mum, really. She's people have adopted her just as she adopts everybody, and she's very, very special.
Seema, the mother's message was important. I need to go back again. Sorry, I'm jumping backward and forward. We were talking about Nepal a minute ago. How do you personally feel about it, about your personal views on that?
Let me tell you about this, because I first want to thank all of your viewers, all of the Sikh Channel viewers, for their generosity. This is a true example of where something that's happened on the other side of the world, where if you think in past times when we didn't have communication, we wouldn't even know. But this is an example of where the local is meeting the global need, We have in Hounslow at the moment as well the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Bishnu Gurung, whose family are in near Kathmandu, whose charity has been there, is helping support, who's working with other councillors as well to make sure that we raise that voice in our local community as well. And on Saturday evening I will be now attending a vigil to raise the issue and the awareness of what's happening in Nepal to support the charity work. Because those small, even what seems small from here, is making a difference that could be saving lives, as well as making that difference for people having the confidence to keep living. In those tragic situations, sometimes just the smallest act of kindness from strangers abroad can give you the confidence just to wake up. And I think that is what is so crucial now, because we're in a very difficult time. We don't know whether there will be more shocks. There could be those aftershocks that continue.
Could be the rumors, yeah?
There are rumours exactly that are coming. And making sure that there is shelter, making sure that there is food, making sure that just as Humanity First, one organisation, I saw the doctors and nurses leaving Heathrow. I went to really give a message of support to them. It was actually during the election time. I was very, very lucky to be able to join them just at the airport one evening when they were leaving.
Really?
And then kept in touch with them on their progress, met them or spoke to them certainly when they came back as well to learn what's happened. I will be raising some issues they shared with me in Parliament when Parliament starts to sit in the next week. This is because we have responsibility at these times. If you cannot be there when a nation is so desperate for you to help them keep the people alive, then actually when can you be there? So on this, even the smallest acts of generosity now are making a big difference. As Nepal grows in its stability, tackling these challenges, then it will have a huge rebuilding to do, both of its economy and also of its services, its schooling, where schools have collapsed, hospitals. So the story will not end when the crisis is over, and that will be something we need to say in whichever way we can support, that we should continue to support that work as an international community.
Seema, at the moment the support we're giving through Sikh Channel and by the general public donating to us, it just is essential. The shelter boxes, as you just mentioned, about building the country, the schools, the houses, the hospitals, this is far away, and it's going to take generations before the country is back on their feet again.
It could take generations, but it may be quicker than that. If actually you see the country come together, if you see the international support reaching where it needs to go. At the moment, as you were saying before as well, there are places that they haven't even reached. They may not have even seen how many people have passed away. So there is still a journey to go through to deal with the immediate crisis. But there is a tremendous resilience that human beings have as well. And that resilience can be just increased hugely when people know there is support behind them. And that's why I believe the messages of support, the practical support, the volunteers going out from the medical profession, from the teaching profession, they will be critical to support the Nepalese community as well, and the nation in making sure they have what they need to rebuild the country.
Seema, thank you very much. Time is one thing which never goes along with you. Unfortunately, we're running short of time. Please, तुसी इसी तरह breakfast को देखते रहो. मैं पहले भी क्या के हटिया. Please, तुसी जितना भी हो सके, whatever you can, अपना donation दबो Sikh channel नु, aid नु ताकि ऐसी और boxes buy करके उन्होंने पे सके. Seema, got 30 seconds to see अपनी. What would you like to say to the viewers? Some personal advice to follow you as a role model. 30 seconds in the camera, tell me what to do.
I would just say this. I believe very strongly, whichever your calling in life, that you have to follow that with honesty, with integrity, never be held back by barriers that other people put in your way, and always believe in yourself, believe in the future that you want to create, believe in the legacy that you want to leave, believe in your faith, believe in the Guru supporting you when you are going through tough times, that they are with you. And in those situations, stay strong, remember your anchor, and you will be successful.
Seema, thank you very much for coming in. It's my pleasure to have you as a guest today. We're running out of time. Next week, same time, same jagah, फिर मुलाकात होगी. वाहिगुरू का खालसा, वाहिगुरू की फतेह.